pardon is just deflating. For those of us who have been out there for a few years now yelling about what a unique threat Donald Trump is, for Joe Biden to do something like this, Trump, nobody's above the law, we've been screaming. Well, Joe Biden just made clear his son Hunter is above the law.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. I was getting ready to close the book on 2024. After all, this was the year that saw the most consequential election of our lifetime since the last most consequential election of our lifetime. But you gotta admit, there was a lot of buffoonery abound, whether it be on social media, during the campaign trail, in Hollywood. You saw it all along with me, which we'll be talking about starting on Wednesday, when we start celebrating Buffoon of the Year and we crown the dumbest newsmaker of the year. But apparently we have a late entry into our Buffoon of the Year categories and rankings. And that's the latest news over the weekend from the lame duck President Joe Biden, that he has pardoned his son Hunter Biden for all transgressions going back to like January of 2014 when he joined the board in Burisma with Ukraine, up until the present day. You had to see this coming, right? I mean, this sort of hypocrisy was bound to happen regardless of the results of the election. And while I am sympathetic to a father helping out his son, and I certainly understand that, we got to review the absolute agenda gymnastics that led to Joe Biden pardoning Hunter. We're going to look at his past statements about how he would never do this and some reaction going forward. But before we get to all that, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. And if you like what you see and hear in this or any other video on the channel, smash that thumbs up button. Like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that really, really good stuff. Because all that's going to help our channel grow via the YouTube algorithm. As always, gang, thank you so much for all that you do to help grow the channel wherever you're watching. I hope you're liking, sharing, and of course, subscribing. And for all you newbies out there, maybe someone shared this video with you. I hope this video earns your subscription as we look at the latest breaking news from over the weekend concerning Joe Biden's pardon of Hunter Biden. As you may recall, Hunter Biden had been involved with multiple charges and was the first son of a sitting president to be convicted on different federal charges. They included the possession of a firearm, even though he had failed to disclose that he was addicted to drugs at the time, and also charges concerning tax evasion and failure to pay taxes. Hunter was due to be sentenced later this month on those charges, but then Joe intervened, and the news of the pardon spread like wildfire across network news and national cable news. Here's how CNN reported the story initially.
Look, we are just getting a statement from President Joe Biden. He's saying that today he signed a pardon for my son Hunter, and he goes through the reasoning why. Of course, Hunter is facing a sentencing later this month, but this is really a monumental moment for President Biden. He said several months ago in June, when he was still seeking a re-election, that he would not pardon Hunter Biden, but now we are learning he is.
Let's go back in time and look at some of those denials, not only by Joe Biden, but by his administration, to questions about whether or not he would choose to pardon his son.
Flashback.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Hey, let me go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I'd abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Again, you've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Just to follow up on the pardon question, is a commutation also still off the table?
For who are you talking about? Oh, no. No, I mean, we're not, that's not what we're going to do.
So you had said on Air Force One that the president would not consider a commutation of his sentence.
Yeah,
you're saying that still stands? Okay, great.
End of flashback.
So that was then, and then being from the summer of 2023 up until November of 2024. But today we live in a different world.
He said, today I signed a pardon for my son, Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted.
You gotta be shitting me.
Well, if that ain't the pot calling the kettle black right there. Joe Biden complaining about selective prosecution of his son? What about the selective prosecution that's been going on for over a year concerning his political adversary and opponent, the once and future president, Donald Trump? That wasn't the politicization of the Justice Department, Mr. President? Look, I get it. It's his son. I understand him using the levers of power to protect his boy. I also know it's completely hypocritical given what we saw over the past year and a half so. That sort of hypocrisy and the agenda gymnastics you're hearing in this statement about selective prosecution, it's all hypocrisy and agenda gymnastics that I talk about in my book. Schnooks, Crooks, Lies, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores.
This guy is a grifter.
Obviously, you hear Joe Biden saying, well, I kept my promise somewhat about not interfering with the Justice Department investigation and their actions. But now he is. Now those actions have led to a conviction on multiple different charges in different cases. And the hypocrisy of pledging on the campaign trail as part of his pitch to be reelected that he would not pardon his son, to now that he has lost, and now that his party has lost, and now that the government is going to be turned over to the control of the Republicans in both the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, that he is now going to pardon his son completely and totally for all actions, whether charged or not charged. It's not just a gun charge. It's not just a tax evasion. It also goes back to January of 2014, according to the statement released from the White House, which would include all of the time that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma, that energy company in Ukraine that is supposedly linked to that organization that we talk about called Biden Inc., that includes Joe Biden's brother and the money transferred from those organizations to, allegedly, other members of the so-called Biden crime family.
That sneaky son of a bitch.
Isn't it interesting how that goes, right?
So this is a fairly long statement, about 4 or 5 paragraphs from President Biden, but really going through why he is making this decision. He also goes on to say this. He said, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out because he is my son, and that is wrong.
Singled out because he's your son, but that didn't stop a dispassionate DOJ, or at least that's what you're going to claim it is, because it's your DOJ that brought the charges. It was a special counsel, David Weiss, that investigated him. And you're going to say that he was singled out when there's video of him with a gun in his hand, naked on video, when there's proof that he was using drugs while he possessed that gun, while there was testimony about that brought in open court, when the Hunter Biden laptop contents were introduced as evidence that you said back in 2020 was a Russian operation? You're going to say now that he was singled out? The hypocrisy is enormous here. It's overwhelming. And the radioactivity of Hunter Biden is tainting Joe Biden's legacy here. Again, he's protecting his son. I understand that from a personal level. But from a purely political standpoint, and as history will remember, Joe Biden went from denying that there was any wrongdoing at all in that laptop to an investigation revealing tax avoidance and tax violations and crimes and weapons charges, all the way to guilty verdicts where those contents of that laptop that was supposedly planted by the Russian government ended up convicting his son. Where in the world does that say he was singled out because his last name is Biden? His last name is Biden affected things certainly because there was a sweetheart deal in place that would have gotten Hunter off on a lot of these charges. And indeed, Joe references that in his statement from the White House, saying that that was a fair deal.
It's preferential treatment!
Certainly, no one thought it was a fair deal except for Joe Biden and the Biden family, and probably Democrats as well. Joe Biden's legacy will be forever affected by his own hypocrisy and his lying, his out-and-out lying. But for some Democrats, like Jasmine Crockett, a very outspoken member of Congress, who is on the far left, I would say fringe left in my opinion, she was very happy with this decision by Joe Biden.
Well, I won't pretend to speak for the entire caucus, but I will say, way to go, Joe. Let me be the first one to congratulate the president for deciding to do this, because at the end of the day, we know that we have a 34-count convicted felon that is about to walk into the White House. So for anyone that wants to clutch their pearls now because he decided that he was going to pardon his son, I would say take a look in the mirror, because we also know that when it comes to this cabinet has more people accused of sexual assault than any incoming cabinet probably ever in the history of America. So we are living in unprecedented times, and we know that this was completely political. As someone who serves on the Oversight Committee, this was gamesmanship the entire time.
Certainly, in my opinion at least, Jasmine Crockett's statements embody the view of hyperpartisans, those tribalists in politics who think of nothing but power, that there is no truth but power when it comes to political maneuvering. So Joe Biden is totally in the right to pardon his son and completely remove any sort of penalty from his clear criminal activity. But Donald Trump is the orange man who's bad. He is a criminal. He's like the bad man from WW2. So that justifies Joe Biden doing what he did. But when we come back from the break, you're going to see that not all Biden supporters agree with that hyper-partisan perspective. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. Next, we're going to hear from Joe Walsh, a former Republican Congress member from Illinois and a complete Trump hater. If there was a poster child for Trump derangement syndrome, that would be Joe Walsh. If you see some of his unhinged takes on X concerning the once and future president, you'd understand why I'm saying that. But in this clip, he appears on MSDNC and gives his reaction to Joe Biden pardoning Hunter, and I can't find any fault with anything that he's saying here.
What do you make of all of this? What is likely to be the response on Capitol Hill to this breaking news?
Good to be with you. See, I told you so. They're all like that. So the next time any of us complain about anything Trump does, this pardon is just deflating. For those of us who have been out there for a few years now yelling about what a unique threat Donald Trump is, for Joe Biden to do something like this, Trump, nobody's above the law, we've been screaming. Well, Joe Biden just made clear his son Hunter is above the law. Donald Trump lies every time he opens his mouth, we've been screaming. Joe Biden repeatedly lied about this. The politicization of the justice system, Donald Trump and his people have been screaming. Well, that's exactly what Biden said here.
Yeah, Donald Trump was right.
The validation of Donald Trump. You see it right here. Joe Walsh is basically saying that Democrats have given up the high ground by applauding this pardon. Joe Biden has given up the high ground because of this pardon. No one has any room to complain about any part of any J6er that Donald Trump does going forward. No one has any moral high ground to claim that the justice system is not two-tiered, like Donald Trump has been saying. Joe Biden let the mask completely come off, and he did it for his son. Again, yes, it's his son. I think any father would do this. But politically speaking, the Democrats lose all credibility for all of the lawfare and all the statements against Donald Trump, how no one's above the law, etc., how all the pearl clutching occurred after the Supreme Court gave Donald Trump a victory concerning presidential immunity. All that's over with. It's over and done.
So is this a politics of purity? I mean, we had Donald Trump pardon Sheriff Joe Arpaio during his term, and there wasn't a lot of hue and cry about that. And this is...
How is that even comparable? Donald Trump pardoning a embattled sheriff in Arizona versus a father using the levers of government and the powers bestowed upon him by the people to help his son avoid criminal punishment. That's the comparison that this host, I don't even know who this host is. It's a Rachel Maddow wannabe from the glasses that I'm seeing. That's the comparison you want to make here?
I'm literally grasping at straws!
A father who saw his first wife killed, his daughter killed in a car crash, his two young sons survive. One goes on to have real difficulties with addiction. Another dies because of cancer. This is a family that's really troubled. I mean, yes, he said he wasn't going to do this, but did anyone ever believe that that was the case? I mean, I would have put good money on this happening.
And there it is from MSDNC. Oh, Joe Biden was lying the whole time. No one thought he was actually not going to pardon his son. And while that may be true in some circles, you can't avoid the hypocrisy of the quotes that we saw earlier in the video, the statements from the White House at that podium, on the record, time and time and time and time again from this president. But we all knew he was lying. What a cop-out. What nonsense. This is the uneven playing field that Democrats love to engage in. This is the hypocrisy they love. When someone on their side acts improperly or whatever it may be, whether it be a pardon or whether it be doublespeak or whatever it is. Oh, well, he had a rough family life, so he can get away with that. But Donald Trump talks about pardoning those who participated in January 6th. Everyone's up in arms. There's a commission created to show that he committed crimes. There are lawsuits that go to the Supreme Court claiming that he incited insurrection. And all of that is supposed to be taken seriously, while at the same time, out of the other side of your mouth, you're like, Joe Biden was always going to pardon Hunter. What complete and utter bullshit.
Are many people going to be surprised that a father who is also the president would do this for his son?
I don't know that people will be surprised, because you're right. Joe Biden repeatedly said he wouldn't do this. So he repeatedly lied. But this just furthers the cynicism that people have about politics. And that cynicism strengthens Trump, because Trump can just say, I'm not a unique threat. Everybody does this. If I do something for my kid, my son-in-law, whatever, look, Joe Biden does the same thing. I get it, but this was a selfish move by Biden, which politically only strengthens Trump. It's just deflating.
And that's the main reason why Joe Walsh is speaking out against this, because it helps Donald Trump. But unlike Walsh, my opinion is not going to be politically motivated by partisanship. I'm of the opinion that Joe Biden is completely entitled to do this. Yes, he's a hypocrite for saying he wouldn't and then doing it, but it's certainly within his power to do so. Presidents pardon all types of unsavory characters all the time in the name of politics. Political friends and allies get sentences commuted, get out-and-out pardons. This is the business of politics. This is the business they've chosen, to steal a quote from the Godfather series. Just like I won't be upset that Donald Trump, the once and future president, will be making his own pardon decisions, I'm not going to blow a gasket over Joe Biden being a hypocrite for his son's sake. It's part of the powers of the president that he's able to do. I do agree with Joe Walsh that when it comes to the game of political brinksmanship, when it comes to the tribal warfare that is going on in partisan politics, the Democrats have lost the high ground. They can't complain with a straight face about any pardon that Donald Trump decides to do during his presidency. And that to them is a blow, and I get that. But at the end of the day, if we all recognize that if we take partisan politics out of the picture here, boy, that's some alliteration for your ass. If we take the partisanship out of the picture, this is just presidents exercising the powers that they are entitled to do. Joe Biden helping his son on a personal level, I completely understand. On a political level, he's a hypocrite, but what does he care? He's leaving office, he's leaving public life anyway. For the Democrats that want to resist Trump for the next 4 years, this is a big blow to them. And that's why Joe Walsh is on there complaining and saying that the sky is falling when it comes to the hypocrisy of Joe Biden and the pardon power here. It's always about the survivors of the politics, not those leaving the stage. So take it with a grain of salt about all the outrage you're going to see about Joe Biden's pardon of his son. Frankly, I think this opens the door to the once and future president to do whatever the hell he wants because they ceded the high ground to Donald Trump. But hey, listen, that's just my opinion on all this nonsense. Let me know what you think. Let's talk about this in the comments together. And as always, like and share this video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the shows. Are you upset that Hunter Biden is going to be getting off scot-free with no punishment? Are you laughing at the Democrats because now Donald Trump gets to do whatever he wants with the pardon power? Let's talk about that together and any other shenanigans and buffoonery happening every day this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.